Hi everyone. Okay, we are doing the last part of the the solar system, the solar lords, and the 12 celestial hierarchies. Understand that in retrospect and doing a little recap, since we're on the ending of the 6-part series, um, up for the 6 weeks, that we have a classification of our planets in academic science that tells us that there is no life on these planets. There's no life in Venus, there's no life on Mars, there's no life on the moon, there's no life in the rest of the planets of our solar system. Scientists are also professing the same thing when it comes to other star systems and other planetary systems. For example, the Andromeda galaxy, for example, which is the one next to us, is, they say that there's nothing there. You know, the Milky Way galaxy in which we live in is, we're the only ones in existence. Do you know how many billions and billions and billions of stars are in our Milky Way galaxy? And when I say billions, billions, I don't even think that's an accurate number. I think it's trillions of stars. And each star has its own planetary system. And each planetary system is ruled and governed by a differing demiurgic god. Now, when I say demiurgic god, understand that I'm talking about a god that is not the ultimate true god, but another aspect or another representation of a lower level hierarchy of gods. Jehovah, as we call him, or the God of the Jews, which I've already mentioned, that he's everyone's God, not just the Jewish people. Although the Jewish people are the chosen ones, and through which the agency of Jehovah will be executed. So understand that each God, or each solar system, which is run by a particular star or controlled, or illuminated by a particular star, just like our sun illuminates our solar system. So, if you can imagine our setup of our solar system and multiply that by trillions, and there's life here. There's life everywhere. Everywhere. And there's also another secret that I gotta tell you. And this one might be, ooh, well, let's see. Maybe not. Is that we have every single life form that you see on this planet. And I mean, every single life form that you see here is a composite of all the life forms that exist out there in the universe, in the known and unknown universe. Now, we are not particularly as occultists, or at least I'm not, because I haven't reached the highest degrees yet of Masonry or Freemasonry or Scottish Rite, whatever you want to call it. The higher you go in these, you have to be a member of the secret societies, of course, as I am as well. And all the secrets are not revealed all at once. And not every initiate or cultists will have all the knowledge at once. It's impossible. It's dangerous, and it can cause insanity. So we're not allowed to to disseminate that kind of information all at once. Just as this wine glass, you have to trickle it down slowly, carefully. That is how knowledge is disseminated from above to the lower worlds. The reality is that we have planetary systems or star systems, right, in other galaxies and in other parts of the universe that are run only by insects, or what we will call the phylum, as one of the kingdoms of our planet. The phylum, which is the world of the insects. Uh, Remember the movie Star Troop, Starship Troopers? It was a film with Denise Richards was in it, about a bunch of guys that were fighting these big cockroaches, and they will go into space to land and kill these cockroaches because they were throwing bombs from their bowels to the earth from the star system that they are from. I watched that movie, and that movie, I got chills all over when I watched that movie. It's I guess it's a science fiction movie. Um, you can say that it was half comedy, but it really wasn't comedy. It was really, action. It was more like an action movie, but it was kind of violent. Can you imagine a world run by cockroaches or insects? What's funny is that this planet one time, was run by cockroaches. And just like you have a composite of all living species and kingdoms on our planet, they exist individually in other star systems. So, for example, when you go outside and you look at trees, the beauty of the trees and plants, well, there are planetary systems that are run completely by trees and plants. There's other planetary systems out there that it's all water and no earth. And there are other planetary systems out there that it's all earth, no water. There's a movie called Pitch Black by Diesel. Van Diesel is in it. Pitch Black. It's a science fiction action movie, but it can also be classified as a science fiction horror film because they land on this planet that seems desolate, that seems barren, and the sun never sets until there is an alignment of all the planets of that particular system that they were in which the sun is blocked and it becomes pitch black. There are planetary systems exactly like that movie. And at night came out these creatures. Oh my goodness. I have seen these creatures in my dreams and in my journeys when I travel out my body. And I see what's out there. And there are planetary systems of animals, like in that movie that I saw, Pitch Black with Van Diesel, run completely by these beings. These beings are stragglers, late in their evolution. And these people landed in this planet populated by beings that are not evolved and are considered stragglers. Right? And fascinating movie. You know, I mean, if you're getting to the plot, you know, it's fascinating, but it's not really that far fetched from reality. Not that far fetched. Uh, there was a horror movie that came out not too long ago. Well, back when I was young, about these plants that will kill people. They grow and kill people. Well, that is real. That does exist. But then again, you have vines and all kinds of plants here that are very dangerous and poisonous to plant species and to humans and animals alike. So the Earth represents all forms of life that exist individually in other star systems. Mhm. Why do we have a planetary system like this one that has in its composition all of life? Can you imagine the marine life on our oceans? We have not gone to the depths of the ocean. We've been to space and we've been to the other planets, but we have not gone to the depths of our ocean. That's deep. And yet, if you go down there, you're going to see all kinds of life forms that it's almost impossible to classify, and species that are yet to be classified. I am sorry, I always forget to turn off my phone when I am doing these videos. Yes, hello, how are you?
Hello, may I speak with Fernando, please?
This is he?
Hi, I was calling to see if I can can you do like consultations for like readings?
Yes, ma'am.
Yes, I would like to schedule one.
Well, okay, I will schedule you one for 5 o'clock today.
Okay.
5 o'clock, okay?
Okay. How long is it and how much is it?
It's 150 and it's from half an hour to an hour.
Okay. Okay. Thank you.
Should I book you or no?
No.
No problem, no problem. So, understand that the Earth is a composite figure, a composite model. I'm not going to say figure, although you can say figure, but a model of all life forms, of all composite life forms. So, having said that, why do we have this model representation? Well, we don't know. We don't know. Or at least it's not revealed to us yet on a higher plane why it is designed this way. And if we have other planetary systems that also have composite or consolidated varieties of life forms that are represented in other parts of the quadrature of space, these things are not completely clear. But we do know that the Earth represents all life forms that are found elsewhere, grouped in and consolidated into one planet. Think about that. Huh? I believe I left off when I was talking about Neptune. I was talking about Neptune, and I believe that's where I left off, describing the beings that live on these planets, right? Again, let me start with Neptune and give you some more information about the beings that live in Neptune. The beings that live in Neptune are they are very, very they have qualities of the air element. despite the fact that the mythology points towards Neptune being more watery, and Aquaman and all that stuff, and yes, there is a truth to it. There is a total truth to it. But if you watch the movie Aquaman, Aquaman represents the story, of course, and the movie is fascinating. My guy's like, wow, that stuff is to come. Like the movie Avatar. The movie Avatar, it's describing the, well, many occultists believe that it is describing the Vulcan period. But no, it is not describing the Vulcan period. It is describing the Jupiter period. It is in the Jupiter period that we're gonna see what you see in Avatar. If you haven't watch the movie carefully. The time is gonna come in our evolution where the earth will be speaking to us through the elements. We'll be able to see the air. We'll be able to see the trees speak to each other. We'll be able to see the molecules of oxygen. Our life is going to enter a higher octave of consciousness in which the ego, for the first time in a long time, will be incorporated into the consciousness of the soul, where the soul and the ego will have separate consciousness. It won't be one consciousness awakened by another. There will be a fusion of consciousness. Today, the ego is considered by social scientists, psychologists, academic scholars, and what have you, to be the enemy of man. The ego is something that has to be tamed or overcome. This is what we are learning today, right? And we also understand that the ego is the voice of the archons, because there's internal dialogue in man, and it's not just his inner voice. He has his inner voice, but the voice of the ego is not his. That belongs to the archons that have hijacked us and are indwelling within us and influence us, interpenetrating us in and out through. Every single human being has archons with him or her. And I will go into details as to how the archons hijacked humanity and have interbred with us. And now, every time we are born with them as well. They follow us from generation to generation. No? Depending on the particular bloodlines that they are attracted to. And archons are not asleep. They're not asleep. We are asleep because we don't know that they're there, and we have no consciousness and understanding why they're there. Much of the history of our planet and of our solar system has been kept from us by conventional and academic science. Why? The reasons are as mysterious as they are political. The origin of the archons, I will also discuss when I begin to talk about the Atlantean epoch and the Lemurian epoch. Because, like I did say in my other videos, these continents, Lemuria, Atlantis, they did exist. And boy, did they. And the beings that were there, and the stuff that was going on there, is very similar to the Aquaman movie that we are seeing today. Just imagine it above water instead of underwater. And that was the daily life of Atlantis. But Atlantis lasted millions and millions of years. Okay, that they're not telling you. Um, but before we go deeper into that, let us discuss the more basic elements of these planets. Okay, I'm doing a recap now. Uh, Neptune is considered an ocean god. Now, again, the word god is a misnomer. We're using it for lack of a better word. I think the better word to use is higher being. Higher being. An entity with godlike powers. Because if the concept of God is that it's a creator and creates other life, well, then we are gods too, because we have sex and we create babies. Isn't that a function of being a god? And yet it says in Psalm 84 that we are also gods, right? So the word God is a relative term, and it could be a real pickle where we want to classify these beings and these hierarchies. You know, the Neptunian god, in which the planet is named after, the Roman god of the sea. This entity, it's really a nature entity. We're going to call it a god because it runs and governs, like Jehovah does. The concept of Brahman, Vishnu, Kali as gods that can create and destroy. Um, but we can change the word and call them extraterrestrial beings and not be wrong because they're not of this earth and yet they are influencing this planet and yet they don't belong to our particular life wave. So by all sense and purposes and definition, they will be considered extraterrestrial beings, but that have stewardship of our planet. Pretty much like these archons have stewardship of our egos, our consciousness. As above, so below. It's almost a system of codependency. So technically, the gods cannot be gods unless we make them gods in our mental construct. But you become a god, so therefore you have stewardship of something, sovereignty of something, other life and other creations. Otherwise, there'd be no purpose for the gods. Okay? We have to look at the psychology behind why the gods are there and why they need us as much as we need them. So the concept of God is an illusion in itself because each is dependent upon the other. There's a codependency going on here, which is why if you understand that early on, then understand that God is you and you are God. And that the limitations that you think you have are limitations fabricated by your mind. And if and the mind is conditioned to be and feel a certain way, well, that is going to affect the outcome of your works, your belief system. If you believe that you cannot exist without the gods, then your lifeline will be shortened. But it's a belief system. If you believe the opposite, you live longer. The mind and the world are inversely proportional. There has to be, and also versely proportional. So you have to understand very early in the occult training that there is nothing separated from us. The separation that we think are there are not there. It's an illusion. Everything is within proximity. Even all the planes and realms of existence They're not far away. They're right here, right here. You know, just invisible. Okay? And the gods are accessible more than we think and more than the church has led us to believe. So, this Neptunian god from the planet Neptune, and Neptune, like many scientists and occultists have said over the years, amongst themselves, because this is something that's not academically available in colleges and universities for students to pick up and learn, let's say, in a curriculum. That doesn't mean that these books and these knowledges are there, not there. They're there. But is there going to be a comprehensive course at an academic level like Yale, Harvard, Columbia that's going to discuss this in an open lecture? Never. Never. I've been at Columbia 5 years and I have yet to sit in a discourse or lecture series of Columbia or facultative course that discusses what I'm discussing. Yet the information that I am discussing, the information in which I am getting this from, is from the library, the Butler Library at Columbia University. But I'm very curious. The first thing I did when I became enrolled at Columbia University was that I learned their catalog and library system. That was the first thing I did. And from Columbia, I can get books from Harvard, Yale. You learn that, you can have an education from Columbia and not even pay a single drop of tuition. Audit courses and learn on your own. And you can get yourself a nice education without the degree. It's okay. It's only a piece of paper. What's important is that you get the knowledge. And that's what I do. I'm uh, I seek knowledge. And I go to the best institutions in the world because that's where they hold the secrets. So, understand that Neptune, like I mentioned in the last part, was never thrown off the central mass. Uh, Scientists and astrologers and, you know, the physics community don't understand Neptune, don't understand its morphology, and it seems completely foreign. And I'm telling you, we're telling you, especially, and the Rosicrucian order affirms this, is that Neptune was never thrown off the central mass, like I mentioned in the last series, and it has been brought to us. Not brought to us like, it's a rogue planet that ended up in our gravitational field of the sun and became part of our planetary system. Uranus is another planet that is questionable if it was thrown off the central mass or if it was um, a rogue planet. Well, I will tell you that Uranus was not a rogue planet. It was part of the central mass of the sun, cast off. But Uranus was kind of like the ego has been hijacked by the archons, talking about here on Earth. Something similar happened with Uranus. Uranus was populated by so many stragglers, so many beings that are our lower nature who have not caught up with the evolutionary life wave that occurs throughout the periods, that it has fallen behind in its development, and for reasons that is still not understood in occult philosophy, these beings became very, very aggressive and hostile, parasitic to each other, lack of a better word, demonic, and their rate of vibration was so unbalanced, was so out of control that it caused collisions with other rocks and other moons, causing the planet to sit on its sideways This sitting on its sideways was due to a collision that occurred during the uh, during the cyclical period of the collision period. Remember, I mentioned that there were many collisions that occurred over time. That's how the planets developed moons. They crashed with others, and then bits and pieces flew up, and those became the moons. Which is why Uranus has over 50 moons. Saturn, I think, has over 30 moons. Over 30 moons. I think Jupiter has over 62 moons. Now, there's a reason for that. These moons were part of the planet, broken up into pieces due to the collisions. When they coalesced, they formed their own orbital paths. Right? That doesn't mean that if you hit one of these planets today, that it might not throw them off tilter. You know, it says in Revelation that Revelation is fierce and it's terrifying. Um, I should read the verse. Why don't I do that? Let me read you the verse, and maybe you'll get an understanding of what happened with with Uranus. All right. Okay. We have the Bible here, getting it from my altar. And let me read you a passage from the book of Revelation. And I'm going to read the part of Revelation that is dealing with the destruction of our solar system. Oh, yes, our solar system will be destroyed. The Bible talks about it in graphic detail. So, in order for me to give you an understanding of why Neptune is in its sideways, I got to read you this verse from the Revelation. So you can have a clear idea of what happened to Uranus. Okay? If we go to Revelation, and I unfortunately I don't remember the particular verse, which is why I have to read it, but I think it's more dramatic if we read it, because the biggest dramatic, the biggest drama of life, believe it or not, it's in the Bible. It seems that there were more stuff going on back in them days that can put these soap operas to shame. Huh? Uh, it says here, let's because I'm jumping around because I want to get to the poor. I want to get to the portion that and it uses the word angel. No, these are not angels. Okay. Here we see, and this is chapter 15. The seven angels with seven vials of wrath. Okay, they're probably this is not the King James version, even though I like the King James version. This is the Prince of Peace Protestant edition. I like the King James because it is less tainted. And it's more real. You sense, you can feel spiritually the vibration of realness. Even though the King James version is as corrupt as they come, it's still closer to the truth than the other new versions that came out after the King James version. Okay. Here it says, and I saw another sign in heaven, great and marvelous, seven angels having the seven last plagues, for in them is filled up with the wrath of God. And I saw as it were a sea of glass mingled with fire, and them that had gotten the victory over the beast, and over his image, and over his mark, and over the number of his name, stand on the sea of glass, having the harps of God. Now, here we see some kind of stellar event, okay, that seems so transparent that it's almost it shines with fiery luminescence because it says that it's mingled with fire. But again, this is not on earth. This is up on the higher levels and the higher planes. It is a trajectory of what's to come. But that is not the verse I'm looking for. Okay. Here, let's see. Let's see. Okay. I'm gonna have to paraphrase, and then later on, as I do the other series, I will mention the verse and chapter. That way we don't eat up the time. But we have in the book of Revelation, it talks about the fact that there's going to be terrible things physically happening to our earth. But not just the earth, our entire planetary system. Because the book of Revelation is letting us know, it's a very frightening book. It's letting us know that our solar system will come to an end in a very destructive, dramatic way. One of the verses where it says, um, and the stars of heaven fell as a fig leaf that's shooken and the leaves fall off. 1/3 of the earth will be smitten, and therefore 1/3 will be light and 1/3 will be dark. There will be 1/3 of water and 1/3 of earth. He also says that the stars in heaven will be out of their positions. They're not going to be in the same positions as they are now. And that to us, from the vantage point of us looking up, they're going to appear like they're falling to the earth. And there'll be a different alignment and orientation to our planet. This is so clear what this is saying. At the end, it says that only 1/3 of the sun will be seen. 1/3 of the moon will be seen. 1/3 of the stars will be seen. Something is going to hit our planet that's going to block 1/3 of our view, either because the planet itself will be destroyed 1/3, or because some other stellar phenomenon will be blocking us permanently. And it talked about earth, wind, tidal waves, the whole thing, which of course makes sense to any seismologist. If something blocks the earth, blocks the moon from our gravitational field, that could cause anomalies to our rotation. But what I found fascinating and interesting about that verse is that the stars appear to be in a different alignment from before. So that's telling me that the planet is going to suffer a shift on the poles. Remember, the Earth is 23.5 degrees pointing this way. It wasn't like that before. There was a time where the Earth was zero gravity, okay? And probably sitting on its sideways before it evolved to be at the tilt that it is today, 23.5-degree tilt. The Earth, if I can draw it, let us draw it, okay? Let us draw it so you'll understand what I'm talking about. Okay. We have, and we're still talking about Uranus, but I have to make the reference because cosmologists think, and even occultists are really saying that they don't understand where the Uranus came from and why it sits on its orbit the way it does. And it is explainable. It's not really as mysterious as it may appear. See this? This is our Earth. Okay? You see? If we do, remember trigonometry? Hypotenuse and obtuse? Now this is where the mathematics comes into play. Okay? The Earth is at a slant, 23.5 degrees. It is this slant that gives us the seasons: winter, spring, summer, fall. Now let me show you the orbit, if you didn't know, of Uranus. This is the orbit and the position of Uranus. It is sitting on its sideways with the poles pointing east and west, not north and south. And it at zero gravity. Zero gravity because it's 0 degrees. Cosmologists don't understand why Uranus sits like this. They don't understand. They don't understand mathematically how this planet does not implode, sitting at 0 degree gravity. A total mystery. But here it is. The planet Uranus used to be in its proper north and south pole alignment, like for the other planets. But the collision that it suffered was so intense, so strong, that it destroyed the planet in which it collided with. Now, yes, many many cosmologists are not in agreement because Neptune and Uranus are gas giants. Jupiter, gas giants. But that was not the case before they became gas giants. They had solid matter. It's just that they evolved differently to look like how they do today. Because just like we evolve and everything on our planet evolves, so do other planets evolve. You think Uranus looked like that then as it does now? If the Earth didn't look like it does now then, what makes you think that the other planets look like that now and look like that then? If the Earth does not reflect that truth, neither do the other planets. So understand that the morphology of these planets did not look like they do today. In order to have the spherical pressure and solidness to be able to contain these gases, that later cosmologists call them gas giants, because they don't really know what's behind or beyond the clouds or the storms of Jupiter. But there's solid matter in these planets. And sooner or later, cosmologists will catch up, either through technology, they'll go into these gas giants and get samples, or they'll get past the clouds and storms of these gas giants to actually see what's down below. Like Venus. When the Cassini space probe landed on Venus, they didn't think that the space probe would survive It took months before our space probes were able to penetrate through the atmosphere of Venus before we get to see what was down below. It is remarkable achievement of material science of what they've done. We can go to different planets and take pictures and send probes there to land there and get samples. Amazing achievement from the science department. Amazing achievement. Bravo! Bravo! Smart motherfuckers. But they still got it wrong. For example, the Cassini space probe, and I believe the Challenger one. That I used to know all the names. Let me see if I can look up the. I still have some of my astronomy books from Columbia. Um, Let me see if I can find the names of the probes. Okay. Oh, this book is so fucking hard to read. Stars and Galaxies. This is one of my textbooks from Columbia University. Postgraduate, of course. It's different than graduate than undergrad. Um, let's see. Let's see. You know, they are. The space crabs. Uh huh. The Cassini, the Sputnik, the Harbinger. I knew I saw them somewhere. Uh huh. Okay. We're gonna stop there. But you know what I'm talking about. You know what I'm talking about. Okay. When they landed on Venus, and of course, uh, even material scientists can escape or run away from the fact that we have um, we've been influenced. When I say we, I'm using the plural pronoun we. I'm talking about material scientists, the scientific community. They they are influenced by mythology and the classical literature and the classical education about the romanticizing of these planets. In occult philosophy, and in popular astrology or in pop culture, Venus is considered to be the planet of love and beauty, and anything and everything that deals with beauty is ascribed to Venus. Even the Kabbalah talks about the great beautifier, it talks about Venus as a sphere of tremendous beauty. Even the Kabbalah and the other spiritual system attribute Venus to, they give Venus these characteristics. But if you land on the planet Venus, and if you go to the History Channel or Nat Geo, Science, and those channels, or order them if you don't have them, they do talk about it, and it is evident. But when you go to Venus, when they show the pictures of Venus for the first time, when scientists got there, it was a very, very shocking slap in your face revelation. The planet Venus is a hellish place. If you want to know the concept of hell, go to Venus. Venus is all hell. And there's volcanoes, there's molten lava, there's sea of lava, of red fire, smoke, and electrical storms. It is a hellish place. There is nothing beautiful about the planet Venus. And yet, there are extraterrestrial beings that live there. Yeah. Yes. Yes. Extraterrestrials live in Venus. But do they look like us? No. Are they part of our life wave? No. Although they could have been, but they became stragglers. The entities that live in Venus in those hellish conditions. Think about it. Think about it. Look at planet Earth. Let's use planet Earth as a reference. Planet Earth, and you for those of you who've taken my classes, you know that I go from the very beginning of the Polarian epoch and the Hyperborean epoch, in which the morphology of the Earth was no different than that of Venus today. The way Venus looks today was how our early Earth. So the planets on our solar system are representing a snapshot of what the Earth was in the past and what it will be in the future. It's almost like the Earth is the perfect example of life, but in order to get to that perfect epiphany of life, we had to go to the basic building blocks to get to that point of high epiphany of a cultural civilization or a life form. So the Earth is the end result, but the planets and our solar system represent, even to this day, the historical anthropological evidence of the process that it took for the Earth to be the Earth that it is today. And these planets are, and in the present state that they're in now, are kind of like fossils representing what the Earth was like in its different stages of development. And Venus resembles very much our Earth, not Mars. Mars has become so popular and has become, like, oh, that's the planet. That's the planet. No, bitch. No. The planet that resembles early Earth is not Mars, it's Venus. Venus represents a closer anthropological, morphological representation of how our Earth looked like early in the Polarian period, Hyperborean period. Right? And even under those hellish conditions to this very day, we still have life form on Venus. And the reason why the planet is so unevolved and so primitive is because the beings that are living there are stragglers. But they're not dangerous to us because they're far away, and because the planet Venus is so underdeveloped, so primitive, that there is no way that these beings are going to be able to come here. In fact, these beings are not allowed to leave Venus. They're not going to be in extraterrestrial ships to come here. Number one, those are not the kinds of extraterrestrials that I'm talking about, because not all of them come in spaceships. But these travelers cannot leave Venus because of their rate of vibration. It's so dangerous and so demonic and so unevolved that it will hurt the other planetary systems, including our Earth. Mhm. Let's talk about Mars. Mars is another mystery to occultists and to material scientists alike. Mars has a unique history, and to discuss the morphology of Mars and to discuss what took place there will require a whole different hour in and of its own to discuss Mars. But we're going to touch base a little bit here. Uh, Mars, and it has become so popular, Oh, we found a pyramid on Mars. Oh, we found a face on Mars. Bullshit. All of it, bullshit. The beings that live on Mars are not capable of creating pyramidal structures because Mars, the planet Mars, the terrain of Mars, the topography, the morphology of Mars is still very underdeveloped. And therefore, remember, the planet's morphology symbolizes the rate of vibration of the beings living there. So Mars is very, very primitive. It has no atmosphere like Mercury. And it's barren, dry. The beings that live on Mars resemble that energy, resemble that morphology. They don't have the capabilities of creating pyramids there. And no extraterrestrial is going to come from another star system to land on Mars to do it either. If anything, they'll come here. Because here is where the action is going on. Does that make sense? It's not going to be on the other planets because there's nothing going on there because most of the beings that are there don't have the kind of matter that we have and are still stragglers. Mm-hmm. So understand that the planet Venus, the planet Mars, the planet Neptune, Pluto are all stragglers. The beings that live there are stragglers. The moon, like I told you, why can't we go to the moon? We cannot go to the moon. We were told not to return. The archons that live on the moon are dangerous. It is the sphere of the astral realm, the sphere of Jehovah, the king of the archons. But science won't tell you this. They'll give you another excuse. But if we are to go back to the moon, it's going to be some shit. And we're done. And we will begin the next series of classes when you guys order it. So thank you very much and have a wonderful day and I hope to talk to you again.